Welcome back. Okay, so here's a question for you. Have you ever tried to help your child with math and ended up screaming, throwing things across the room, including the kid, totally frustrated? Well, guess what? You are not alone. This whole math thing has been crazy. Well, there are people who are working on that problem. My name is Vin DeQuino. Our next guest is Linda Fusco. Linda, we've been friends a long time.
Decades.
Decades. And I know that you are a lady with a passion. You want to help with a pretty serious problem. Talk to me about what you've been involved in.
Well, for example, today I get an email from a mother.
Yeah.
And attached to it is her son's homework assignment in math.
Uh-oh.
And she said, can you help me with it here because my son is not doing so well. You know, and the frustrating part is because I don't know how he learns math best.
Yeah.
See, that's the key.
Yeah, that is a key.
The key is it's not about how he's doing in the content, it's how he prefers to learn the math. I may not be able to help her.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're finally reaching a point, you know, we taught for 30 years each, you know, and as time evolved, we begin to realize that no two kids are the same.
No.
And there isn't one formula to teach 28 kids. That we have to understand that children are diverse. They learn in different ways. Some are visual learners, some are audio learners, and we have got to find a way to reach each child. Mm-hmm. And that becomes difficult, especially with this whole new thing called the core
I don't want
curriculum.
to say it because people throw things at me when I do, but
I mean, we have to say it only because there's people who just don't understand what the term means. And I think it's important that we kind of face the issue in the face.
And that's why I'm so passionate about writing this book.
Right.
Because it is for parents to help them understand how to navigate the 13 years of schooling that their child is going to go through, and in particular, learning mathematics.
Yeah,
and what means
because
what
math has changed. I mean, it's more than, you know, reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's not arithmetic anymore. It's math, and there's the new math, and all these terms, they get thrown at us. I mean, you know, I'm not a genius in math, but I'm not stupid either. But I feel stupid when I can't understand the problems.
And the majority of the population feels that they don't know math and they're uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
Everybody, all right? Very few people say, wow, you know, this is for me. And one of the reasons is the book addresses that we learn in different ways. We learn math in different ways, and we have preferred ways of learning math. But unfortunately, our traditional system doesn't provide the opportunity for the students to get engaged in
I read your book because the frustrations that you're talking about have been my frustrations. I mean, I literally didn't get it. I looked at some of the things, you know, I tried to help my grandchild. He says, here, Papa, help me with this. And I looked at it, and I was embarrassed. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. And some of these things were like above me.
I know.
So there is this thing called MathLand. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's a great title because that's exactly what it felt like. MathLand. Some land that I haven't been invited to. It's just some other place. Talk to me about MathLand.
MathLand was the one of the original standard-based And when we talk about standard-based education or standard-based teaching is about teaching a process, not only the content, but the process.
Right.
And what it does is it provides lessons to engage all learning styles, all the learning styles for the students. And it's actually been out since the late 80s.
Yeah.
So when we say new math,
It's not so new.
it's not new at all, okay?
So we have on the screen some of the materials that MathLand uses. These are materials that have been around a little while?
Oh, a long time.
Oh,
a long
okay.
time. And they're used by teachers who have been trained in how to teach standard-based math.
So it's not necessarily just information, it's a method.
Yes, yes.
So it's a method to reach a number of
yes.
different children.
Yes, everybody.
Okay.
Okay. And it was an elementary program, and there have been some attempts to do standard-based for middle school and high school. But the issue is, when we transform from elementary to middle school, it's a whole different type of system.
Wow.
You know, students go from being in a class of 25 with a teacher who instructionally is excellent as far as hitting the whole child, hitting each kid's preferences for learning.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, in 6th grade, the student goes to 150 kids in a class. Now they've taken apart all of the content areas, and now he's specifically sitting in a math class, and that teacher sees 150 students a day.
Wow.
So,
Linda,
you know,
been there, done that.
I know.
While you were a math teacher,
yes,
I was a language arts teacher. Not an English teacher, a language arts teacher. And language arts were the art of language, was English. And it came with a set of new rules for teachers. And guess what? Right in the middle of my career, language arts became whole language. What the heck was whole language? Well, I took courses. I learned. The school invested money. I became the whole language guru from the district. And people were like, leave me alone. Don't want to go there. I'll teach grammar. I'll teach what I've been doing. Whole language ignores that. Well, whole language had a battle because it gave connotations of throwing the baby away with the bathwater. Well, this math, to me, was the same thing.
yes.
This new math meant old math doesn't count anymore.
And that's not true.
It's not true.
No.
And it was the same thing with whole
Not at all.
language and language arts. It just meant that we were blending different styles and that we had to approach children in a different way.
yes,
And
yes.
see them as individual children with individual learning styles.
Yeah.
The goal was still the same, but the method changed.
Right, right. And what it does is it engages. See, the key
Yeah.
thing is you can go and do as much content training with teachers in math as you want.
Right.
But I always ask the question, are the students engaged?
Yeah.
Are you hooking them?
Yeah.
How do you hook them?
Are you teaching math or are you teaching children? And there's the key difference.
Right. And
It's more than teaching content, it's teaching children the content.
And so the lens of the book approaches it from the child's view, from the child's view of how they prefer to learn mathematics. And the why I focused it on parents is because, as I said, they can now become proactive in their child's journey to learn mathematics rather than reactive, like, oh my
Right.
goodness, I don't understand this. So it'll help them understand about the programs, about the school, about how to navigate up through the 13 years, so that, you know, they may have a child who's like, hey, great, through 8th grade.
Yeah.
They get into 9th
Then
grade.
all of a sudden,
they bottom out.
Yep.
You know, so this happens quite often.
yeah.
And a lot of times, I know very successful people said, I always hated math. You know, I never understood it. I never got it. You know.
Yeah, and math is a broad term,
Yes.
like literature. You know, I love when people say, I'm going to be a writer. And I say, what are you going to write? Are you going to write ads? Are you going to do fiction, nonfiction, journalism, poetry? And they go, whoa, I don't know yet. And I say, okay, understand that when you say you want to be a writer, it's broad. It's like saying, I want to grow up and be a cook. Well, what do you want to cook? You know? And it makes a difference. Math isn't just math. It's algebra. There's a whole lot of things.
Right. And it's how the student personalizes it as how it's relevant to them. You know, in other words, why am I learning this?
Oh, yeah.
Many kids sit in a math class and go, why do I have to do quadratics?
I got
don't
news for
understand
you.
it.
In my last 5 years of teaching, I taught teachers. And I focused on trying to help teachers. You would be surprised how sometimes teachers don't understand the task that they're doing. They have to understand not only what they're teaching, but why they're teaching it. What is the end result? What will the child be able to do after learning this? Mm-hmm. You know, that was my problem with math when I was a kid. I was like, why am I doing this? Who cares what AB plus BC equals DD? Who cares?
But Vin, look at you. You're like an interpersonal learner, I call them. And this is one of the preferred learning styles. Yeah. They want to know, so what? What does this math mean to me?
What does it mean to me?
Right. And if it's not provided to you in a way that tells you this is why I'm doing it, you just shut down.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happens to a number of kids.
Yes.
They're like, why am I learning Ernest Hemingway? The guy's been dead for how many years? Who cares? Yeah. And that's the point. The point is, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And if the teacher doesn't understand why this material is being taught to children, the kids sure as heck aren't.
Yeah. And the standard-based material like MathLand is very engaging for everybody because the interpersonal kid gets to talk about it.
And it's very hands-on,
very,
right?
Very hands-on. It's visual. And also, not only the interpersonal, but the creative. We lose a lot of our Goodwill Hunting students.
Because it's boring.
Because they're
Math
like,
to me was like, get lost. You know, it's just all these numbers and all these letters and all. I could care less. I wanted to write a story, man. I wanted to write a book. I don't want to.
And parents should know that they need to have, they should know their child's learning style for math, and this is what the book talks about, how they can identify that. They should know about different programs. They should get a heads up as to how to talk to the teacher about their issues that they're having with their child's homework.
Yeah.
You know, so on and so forth.
And you're right. Like for me, I'm pretty much a visual learner. and it was like, if the teacher explained the thing to me, I got lost. I used to have to say, show me, do one. And if I could look and see how it was done, I got it. But to explain why this number is this and this, I got lost. It just didn't go in.
Well, most of your math teachers are understanding in their math style, which is exactly what you just explained. They're telling you.
Yeah.
They're telling you. And
Telling
kids are
doesn't
sitting there
work.
going, no, show me.
Yeah.
And also, some of the math teachers are step-by-step procedural.
Yeah. Teacher would say, remember, 2 and 2 is not always 4. And I'm like, I'm out of here. You know, either help me to understand, show it to me, or I'm not going to get it. You know, and all these explanations just don't work. So now, your book addresses some of the frustrations.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about it. And it made sense. I like the way you give an example and then explain the example. Can you, now, here we have some more math materials. What are all these little blocks? Is that for like first grade, or do they do blocks?
You can do blocks all the way through high school.
Wow.
And they're pattern blocks. And so you want your students or you want your child to become a math student they have 8 practices, and one of them is to recognize patterns and recognize repetition.
Yeah.
And so these blocks can be used all the way through.
Wow.
Through high school, and it's really good because we're in the 21st century now.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
And
but
unfortunately, we have a school system that's 150 years old, and it's
yeah. I know.
But we're in the 21st century, and the students need to understand and see patterns, and need to be able to incorporate that into their
It's funny, when I was teaching teachers, a teacher who had been teaching for years said to me, "Fiddy, don't you understand? This worked. It worked. It's been working for 50 years. I learned this when I was in school." And I said, "Yeah, you know what? That's what your textbook is that old. This is today. Yeah. The people who wrote that textbook have been dead for 20 years. It's a new world."
Definitely.
And the experiences that we've had today, I mean, it's even with writing, the books that are available, the things that are happening on the computer. Children today are brighter than they've ever been. But one thing hasn't changed. No two kids are alike.
No.
And that's why using new methods to teach old concepts are important.
Definitely, because what you really want to do is have your math students defend or argue why their problem is correct, because there may be several different solutions to a problem. And that's one of the things that the standard-based program does, is it gives the students the ability to argue and support and give evidence. And through that, then they start to understand more about the concepts.
Right. And again, I want to relate it back to language arts. When the children come to me and they say, "Why are we learning Hemingway and Steinbeck?" And I say, not so that you can write like them, so that you can write the way you write. They're examples of this writer's way of expressing himself. Now, who are you and what is your way? Once you've seen all these styles, your goal isn't to copy what they do, it's to find where you are. Which one of these are you most like? What can you take a little from here and a little from there? And to understand, again, the reason you're learning things. English was a sampling of different ways to express yourself.
Model.
Math, yes.
See, and that's the key, the model. So the student, as they go into their profession, or whatever they're going to be doing, they're often faced with making a lot of data choices. Here's the data. And it's really coming up with a model is, well, what model can I use to actually make sense of this data?
Yeah.
And that's what you really want to go towards, is the non-routine problems that come up. And students have all these strategies, and they can help solve it's the non-routine problems.
The importance is understanding that math is a kind of thinking. It's a way to think.
Yeah.
Some logical thinking. Okay, so your book gives examples of some of the problems, and then it gives solutions. Can you give me an example of some of the problems that you help solve in your book?
Yes, one of them is I show the parents the difference between a traditionally taught math lesson,
Great.
multiplying fractions or whatever, and how that looks in a standard-based lesson.
Great.
So in the traditional lesson, it's a set of just problems. Here's how you multiply fractions.
Yeah, they give you a worksheet.
Right,
you have to come up with the answer, and there's only one.
Right. And now, if you didn't get it, here's 40 more problems to do. By the way.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So you got a 40 on that test.
Yeah.
Here. Try to get a 60 on this one and work your way up.
So one of the ways is that you can actually have students apply that. So one of the questions you might ask is, why are large pizzas cut up into 8 sections and small pizzas cut up into 6 questions? and the students have to come up with with portion size, coming up with the unit, identifying the unit. They're using the fractions, they're using decimals, they're applying all of the concepts and the skills, but they're solving a real life problem.
There you go.
That's the difference.
It's a real life problem.
It doesn't mean you don't give them
That's right.
practice.
I couldn't relate to math because it had nothing to do with me. I was never going to have a job that depended on math. I made up my mind because math wasn't my thing. I hated it. It was right or wrong. I loved writing because it's never wrong. You are who you are. You write the way you write. I still do. I use my style. It's not wrong. Math, when you add it up at the end, there's the answer that you have to have. I never get that answer. I don't know.
Not all the time. In fact, the standard base give you a lot of gray area questions. Where you have to defend that, which is really, really where we're going. As far as that goes. Now, it doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, that's good.
Kids still practice. They still have to learn algorithms. But it's like, if you're a coach, do you just practice with the kids all the time? And so if you're a basketball coach, do you just practice? No, you play the game. Don't you learn the rules?
Yeah.
But then after the game, you say, okay, what are the strategies? So that's what math is like. That's what the standard base is like. It's practice, learning the rules, but then the strategies. And that's the strategies that you come up with so that you can solve problems. And that's
so, Linda, define standard-based.
Okay, a standard-based program. There are two strands that you might look at talking about mathematics. One is content. Here's the content. Fractions, decimals, percents, yada, 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 equations. You can go all the way.
All the stuff we've been doing for 100, 200, 300
On
years.
the other side is the process. You want them to graph, you want them to explain, you want them to analyze data. It's the processes that they use. It's going through using that math and applying that math. So standard base focuses on the processes, all right? Here are your cubes. Show me this pattern. Explain your pattern, okay? And that's really what we helps the student now understand.
I get it. Again, I relate it to language arts. I worked with a number of teachers who said, if you want a child to be a good writer, teach that child grammar.
Yeah.
And grammar was the mechanics.
Exactly.
And I tried to say, listen, you're right. Grammar's important. However, until you write the piece, you can't fix it. You have to understand how to create a piece before you worry about the mechanics of it.
Right.
So we would teach the writing process.
Right. There you go.
And there you go, teaching a math process to get results.
Compare and contrast. Look at the set of data. What do you think it is? Is it going to be a straight line? Is it going to be a curved line? What kind of curved line? The students have to come up with the strategies to identify what it's going to be and how it's going to be.
They have to understand the process to get desired outcomes.
And there's so many hands. Like I think one of the pictures there shows spaghetti. Did you see the spaghetti? I'm sure you didn't ask me.
Spaghetti. Do we have spaghetti on those pictures?
On the graphic.
Some kind of illustration we have with spaghetti or something. It's coming. Oh.
There it is.
All right.
Okay. So somebody might, well, what do you do with spaghetti? Well, you can
Really?
actually
I know what to do with it.
Well, you can actually take spaghetti and you can actually have the students map and show a visual of, and this is going to be a big word now, but it's going to be like a tangent curve or a sine curve.
Okay.
And it's higher level. Now you have 11th graders who are now working with spaghetti, but they're actually now piecing it out, and they're actually coming up with the actual
hands-on.
Hands-on. And then they see it.
That I could do.
Yeah.
And to have the teacher stand at the front of the room and explain this to me, ain't gonna happen. Just didn't happen.
And the difference is, generally a standard-based lesson is the teacher launches it with something that the student is going to use to explore. They launch, explore, and then at the end of the lesson, that's when you summarize. That's the learning. Like you said, you have the students write, write a piece, and
Right.
then you go and you look at the grammar.
Yeah.
So
You have to
that's-
build a house before you paint it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So here's a big question. This idea of core curriculum and standard based, is core curriculum standard based?
Yes, it is
So
a standard
you're
base.
not anti core curriculum.
No.
You,
No.
what you are is pro understanding what it is before you
Yes.
fight it.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people
Yes.
out there going, my child is not going to do core curriculum. And I say, what is core curriculum? They go, I don't know, but my child's not doing it because the people next door won't do it either. And we're not going to do it. And what you're saying is, before you fight it, understand what you're fighting.
Yeah, and it's really rigorous. It's really what you want your child to have. But unfortunately, the way our system is hooked up, teachers need a tremendous amount of training. When I tell you a tremendous amount of training, they need to not have to deal with 150
hear
kids.
you.
They need to be pulled out, not for a day,
Yep.
but suppose we pull them out for half a year. And we say, you're going to learn this, you're going to learn this, and you're going to learn this, and you're going to go in. And that's the issue, because the teachers are pressured to do this, but they
Yeah.
don't get all the training that
Yeah.
they need. And besides that, they only have 45 minutes, which is a whole other
I
issue
hear
that's
you.
addressed in the book.
So, your book is called Navigating
MathLand.
MathLand. And the whole idea is that we should take this curriculum, and before we toss it over our shoulders, we should learn how to navigate it. We should understand that there is some good here.
Yeah,
And before we scream and yell, know what you're screaming and yelling about, because there's some good here.
Yeah.
And that many children can be reached.
yes,
through these
everybody
programs.
can be, if it is taught correctly and the training has been done, yes, it can be.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? You've just been told to think about something before you put it down. Linda has been working very hard to try to get people, teachers, parents, children alike, to know that there is some good in standardized based learning. She understands, we need to understand, that not everybody's the same in the way they learn. We need not to teach math, but to teach children. Linda, I can't thank you enough
Thank you.
for what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Get the word out. Get this book done and taken care of. Thank you for joining us. It is our pleasure to have you here. Think math. Ugh. It's not as bad as you think.